Hello Odoo enthusiasts, welcome to the Odoo experience in 2021. My name is Tobias Hammeke and I'm the founder and CEO of Odoo Business Solutions. In this presentation I will demonstrate that Odoo is ready to really tackle SAP R3 or SAP S4 Hana in mid-sized companies. First, I'll discuss some general information about SAP, new requirements to be aware of to keep actually up with our changing world. And then I present a top-level comparison of important aspects of the software. Next, and probably most important, we cover specific feedback from several customers, including an interview with Frederick Daubin, a project manager for the implementation at Key2 Europe. But first, let me briefly introduce Odoo Business Solutions.
Congratulations on winning the award for Best Partner of Europe.
Thank you.
So, as a best partner, can you tell me something more about your business philosophy?
We try to focus really on standard, on configuration possibilities, which are awesome in Odoo already. We want to implement Odoo as cost efficient as possible. We focus only on Odoo, and Odoo and integration into other software. We do manufacturing companies, sales, e-commerce, we have IT companies, we have service companies. So actually, from the sector perspective, we are quite broad.
So we have a very close collaboration with the partners, and if they weren't so willing to support us the way they are doing, we couldn't have done it so quickly.
Let's take a look at the situation at SAP. The very successful SAP R3 system has been discontinued and companies are now being forced to switch to its successor, to the new S4 Hana platform. This switch is not a normal upgrade, which would be already quite expensive in the SAP world. Instead, it's a completely new installation of a new system, so it is definitely the right time now to look for alternatives. S4 Hana is quite comprehensive, but it's also extremely heavy and designed for huge enterprises, not mid-sized companies with a few hundred or a few thousand, even a few thousand employees. The focus of SAP is clearly towards large enterprises where SAP has a monopoly situation. For example, I think it'd be quite hard to imagine a company like Airbus or BMW or some similar companies changing their SAP to another solution. SAP is clearly aware of their monopoly situation and they play it as well, of course, to their advantage. Not only with the big players, so with the enterprises, but also more and more with medium-sized businesses. Fortunately, for medium-sized businesses, there are alternative solutions available. Let's take a brief look at the changing business requirements next, and its new requirements, especially all of which have been accelerated over the last 1.5 years by the COVID situation. First, it is becoming more and more important to have an integrated solution with functionalities outside of the core ERP modules, like, for example, CRM, e-commerce, web platform, etc. Luckily, Odoo covers these functions and is, as we know, fully integrated. Also, to cope with business changes more quickly, flexibility and adaptation becomes key. And again, Odoo shines in this area. Odoo's success comes originally from being an ideal development platform. Modern people like modern solutions. SAP still looks like old software, whereas for Odoo, the sleek, modern user interface is one of its main draws. In fact, we performed an experiment with one of our customers during a proof of concept and showed that work process in both Odoo and SAP to the employees. And the employees' reaction was simply stunning. In my opinion, at that moment, the decision was made to change from SAP to Odoo. With the move toward more digitalization, new business aspects also have to be considered. Luckily, Odoo supports those things natively. Many traditional solutions use buzzwords like digitalization and so on in large conferences, but have difficulties implementing solutions to match. At Odoo, we don't just talk about it, we do it. From my point of view, with the dramatic changes of our time, many industries will feel pressured to reduce organizational and cost in general, so they simply won't be able to afford an SAP S4 Hana implementation. Now that we've discussed the current situation with SAP and the demands of our changing environment, let's take a look at the key aspects companies should be looking at when deciding on the best software solution for them in the future. Odoo is still really weak on branding, whereas SAP is the brand if you speak about ERP solutions. Of course, SAP spends a lot of money to keep it that way, and of course as well, this money is coming from its customers. In contrast, Odoo is only growing through positive recommendations of its customers, doing very little advertisement, and that growth rate has been more than 60% per year over the last 5-6 years. So the very good news for us nowadays is that Odoo does not need to be the brand for growth, since the positive recommendations it receives are just overwhelming. Standard Odoo is also weak in industry solutions. We at OBS mitigate these weaknesses and have created solutions for different industries. So while Odoo is not focusing here, we at OBS, we do. In terms of features, Odoo is a complete business management solution and not a pure ERP anymore, whereas SAP has its core strength in its ERP function and in other functions is rather in comparison poor. So that's yet another selling point, of course, for Odoo. Finance and accounting are the real strengths of SAP, and it is from my side, only function where Odoo is still behind SAP, even though Odoo has improved a lot over the past several versions, for example, in terms of localizations. In fact, last year with our strategic partner Syscoon, we started to develop modules to close this gap. Like modules, for example, to get the formal certification of General Accepted Accounting Principles, GOBD in Germany or GOB for Europe. We have created a dedicated video on the topic. If you are interested in learning more about that, you can find this here. The technical quality of the Odoo platform has always been a big advantage, but it's also being improved with every version. Not me not being the technical specialist at OBS. Odoo's dominance in this area was made clear based on the recommendations of developers. It has won the open source management software race, if you want, judged by an open source community, which is of course strongly developer and tech oriented. Those free developers had the choice to work on any open source software platform, and finally they chose Odoo to be successful. My guess is that SAP S4 Hana would probably fail if a technically savvy open source community ever measured it. Pricing is just in another world. We will see real customer details later. Odoo SR has announced that it would keep the price as low as possible in order to drive growth. User interface, as mentioned before already, is one of the key topics that businesses should consider, especially in the future, since it can be easily checked directly by your employees, as we have seen. In fact, most important is real customer feedback, especially since June 2020, companies have checked the possibilities to move from SAP R3 or even from S4 Hana to Odoo. Most of those projects I'm going to present later have started in the last 12 months and are not fully productive yet. So we are not using them as references, and I will not disclose the names here, but we can make, of course, contact with the project leads if there's substantial interest. These are companies now from different industries, manufacturing companies, distributors of famous brands, a worldwide supplier in the automotive industry, a software specialist in artificial intelligence, for example. Yeah, well, and finally, our interview with Frederick from Quito, a manufacturer and distributor of high-quality cranes and elevating systems. Let's start with one of our biggest implementations at the moment. We are going to present a separate full interview with Dr. Thomas Colliver during this Odoo experience. In this case, SAP S/4HANA was not an option because of previous bad experiences with SAP. In short, they needed certain flexibility in their processes, and we've had to implement a few specific requirements that would have probably cost a fortune with SAP. So definitely don't miss the full interview. At the moment, we are also implementing Odoo at a leading watchmaker. They are still working with SAP R3 and originally wanted to move to the new S/4HANA platform. Before looking into Odoo, they had been conducting a comprehensive proof of concept with an SAP integrator, but were not really satisfied by the results and the proposed implementation. Well, instead, they found Odoo, and we conducted a workshop together with them. Knowing SAP from my previous work, I was still surprised when they told me after only 2 weeks and a couple of workshops with us that they now have a better picture of their future system than after a 6 months proof of concept with an SAP integrator. Besides the convincing functionality and flexibility of Odoo, there was also a huge cost advantage, of course, especially in the long run with the license cost. Odoo was about, cannot imagine, 12 times cheaper. And another time I was then astonished was that the implementation cost ended up being 3 to 4 times cheaper, even though we had to develop a variety of EDI connections which were already available at SAP. Our next example is a software and service company operating in various offices worldwide in the area of artificial intelligence. They had started to implement SAP S/4HANA full scope. The implementation of accounting was okay, but when they wanted to implement other functions, they discovered SAP wasn't the right tool, especially because they needed more flexibility with the implementation of new business models. They actually have now 2 options to proceed. Either they use Odoo for all business processes or implement 6 to 8 specific software solutions and integrate them all. Most of us know what it means to integrate many software solutions, keep data updated, and maintain such a complex software landscape. At a fast-growing automotive manufacturer and distributor, we are replacing SAP S/4HANA in 14 locations worldwide. They've been using SAP for over 10 years, and they feel it is impeding their growth into new markets. They're really looking for a flexible system that can scale quickly. Last but not least, let's have a look at our interview with Frederick from Quito, Europe. What were the main strategic reasons to move from SAP to Odoo for Quito?
Actually, there have been different reasons why at Quito we have decided to move from SAP to Odoo. We have been fast growing over the last 5 years in terms of turnovers, in terms of employees and users of our ERP system. This has different effects, of course, and to have some examples like the cost involved in using ERP. Also, new users, some of them were located outside of our offices. And this has been even reinforced since for the past year. Also, an additional reason was we wanted to move to be able to use a CRM system. We didn't have any before. And so we were studying the different solutions available on the market. And okay, when we found out Odoo had an all-in-one solution, that was definitely deal changer. That's basically, I would say, some of the main reasons, like cost per user, all-in-one solution, and also the fact, like I said, we had some employees located outside of the main office, so the online solution was also a great advantage for us compared to SAP, where let's say the implementation of outside users was much more complicated to implement.
What are the key strengths of Odoo, especially, of course, in comparison to the older to the SAP version?
Key strengths we found in our, let's say, study before implementing, and since we have started to implement Odoo compared to SAP, is the great flexibility that we can find. Also, we have the possibility in terms of production to have good traceability of whether it is orders, product location, and all the offering system with inquiries from our customers. So on the complete line of the process for dealing with orders from our customers, we are able to go through the complete chain of information in a very smooth way. And the fact, again, that it's a cloud-based solution, definitely something we have appreciated, so that even when people are traveling, they still have access to the information wherever they are.
Which aspects did you like in particular working with Odoo Business Solutions?
What we have appreciated in the working with OBS has been that to be able to implement the new ERP, and before that one, even the CRM, we have had different people in OBS which are some specialists in their field, whether it's in accounting, in production, logistics, and customer support. This has been some help for us to have a good understanding of our needs, and also to be able to discuss what could be the features in Odoo which could meet our needs. And in parallel to that, when some specific needs were needing some customizations, then the communication has been quite fast and efficient with them.
Let me briefly summarize the presentation. First, SAP R3 is discontinued. Second, moving to SAP S4 Hana requires the same amount of effort as implementing a new solution. Third, SAP S4 Hana is not a good solution for the future for mid and large companies because first, it is a heavy, inflexible system designed for the largest enterprises. Second, the SAP monopolistic attitude in regard to pricing and others. And third, the solution is not really easily fulfilling, especially modern requirements to fully integrated software. With Odoo, there's a clear alternative available to you that has already received very good customer feedback. Please contact us if you need more information. We are happy to conduct a demo and operative proof of concept with you and show the possibilities of Odoo today. Thank you very much for your attention, and we are now looking forward to receiving your feedback and of course answering your question in the question and answer session now. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone. Here I'm today with the presentation of this talk. Sorry for for bugging. I'm Céline, so business advisor working at Odoo. We are here now to talk about the question that you might have about this presentation. So I will start asking the question that you have already asked in the chat. So please don't hesitate to write all the questions that you have for the moment in the chat. It's really important for me to ask them. So first question would be how difficult is to import data from SAP to Odoo?
Well, yes, the data transition is always important and a major task in such projects. And basically in certain aspects, SAP and Odoo work very similar. So for example, in accounting, but as well in other areas, it's not so difficult to take over data from SAP. But of course, especially if we speak about running data, that is always a major issue or a major topic in any projects. But generally, I think from our experience as well, it's we can extract data from SAP in certain ways, and those data can be imported into Odoo. Odoo generally is very open to data transfer, import, and export.
Okay, thank you for this answer. So we have another question coming from Ossi. So how long a transition project would take from R3 to Hana vs R3 to Odoo? Is there a significant difference?
Well, I think generally if you implement Odoo versus implementing SAP, there's a big difference. So Odoo can be applied far easier because, well, it's a modern solution. It's easier to understand for employees, etc. Specifically speaking about R3 to HANA versus R3 to Odoo, I mean, I know certain, well, my previous company, for example, I spoke recently to, they would be a bit big for Odoo, probably 5,000 employees, but Odoo's coming there. But they are since years now trying to transfer from R3 to HANA, since years. So there we speak about timeframes of 5 to 10 years. Whereas we transfer currently customers from R3, smaller customers, of course, not 5,000 employees, from R3 to Odoo within, well, a year, 1.5, 2 years. Yeah, and as well, not small customers. Yeah, of course, somebody that is using SAP R3 is not small, and therefore, I mean, a time frame of those bigger, for us, bigger projects is a year or so.
Okay, thank you for this answer. So we have Sergio asking, can the same hardware structure be reused in Odoo?
Probably it's meant hardware structure in terms of server. Well, generally the architecture is very different. So in Odoo you need far less hardware than with S4HANA, for example. Therewith, I guess, I'm not a server specialist, but I guess the server could be reused. But Odoo is far leaner and not so heavy like S4HANA, and therefore you need far less hardware as well, which is as well a big cost advantage.
Okay, perfect. We have another question coming from Paolo. So is only branding and industry to stop enterprise to leave SAP to Odoo?
Well, I think the biggest argument, as I said in the talk, is branding. But of course, there are other arguments as well. Of course, if you have a big enterprise like 5,000-10,000 employees or so, probably Odoo is not yet there to really cover the demand there. So size definitely is as well another argument. But if you are a company with 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 employees, I think Odoo is fit for that. And by the way, we have an interview or a talk a bit later today when I interview one of our bigger projects, and they implement Odoo at the moment. And they have decided for Odoo, not for SAP, and they have about 3,000 employees worldwide. But if you go far bigger, then probably Odoo is not there yet. And then there is, of course, I mean, the biggest thing is branding is only one word, but it means so much if you think about it. And there is not only branding, but as well all the atmosphere that SAP is creating and all that comes afterwards is then often a decisive factor for SAP. Or let's say was in the past, it's hopefully, and it will be changing now.
Okay, thank you for this amazing answer. So here we do have another question coming from Peter. So how does the user interface compare with SAP?
Well, as I said probably in the talk as well, that's one of the big differentiator. I think I described as well nicely a situation we had with a customer when the employees had to take the decision whether to take Odoo or SAP, and they had on 2 monitors. They had actually SAP versus Odoo, and it was for me a very decisive moment. Within a minute or 2 minutes, it was clear that Odoo is just in another world there. And I mean, SAP, the screen is full, the screen looks ugly, the screen looks old. It is old software in comparison to Odoo, which is a very modern user interface.
Okay, perfect. So we have Celeste asking, does Odoo have customer who ask for this integration programs of certain Odoo apps to SAP? So for example, Odoo POS to SAP ERP.
Yes. we quite often have that because SAP, they have then an SAP running and certain modules, certain apps are not fulfilling their needs, and they think the Odoo apps fulfill their needs. Often they then say, well, I need this and this and this and these apps, and we need to connect it to the SAP that they have. That's of course not so easy, so we have to really structure it in a way. You cannot just add apps to an SAP because the whole architecture, the whole system is completely different. But we get that question quite often, and what we then advise is to have a long-term strategy and to say, well, certain areas like a CRM or e-commerce or project management tool, which is not good in SAP, we could do in Odoo for a certain period of time, and then over time we make a strategy to take over the SAP implementation completely. Because integration is always difficult, and that's sometimes then the case that customers say, well, look, okay, we could think about such a strategy.
Okay, thank you. We have Alvaro asking for what are the advantages for which I should change from SAP to Odoo? I guess that's a large question.
That's a large question, and I think I try to answer that in the talk given. There's a variety of arguments. I mean, perhaps you can contact me privately, then I mean, I'll give you more information, but most of the information was given actually in the talk.
Okay, perfect. Now, Paolo is asking, I'm not an expert of SAP, just knowing Odoo. I have the impression that in terms of intelligent tools to analyze data, SAP is still superior to Odoo. Am I wrong?
Yeah, that's not so wrong. I mean, SAP is very strong in with the previous, it was called Business Warehouse. And now it's similar. So it's a strength of SAP to extract information. It's as well a strength of SAP to the whole finance area is a strength. But in particular, the thing to extract data and make it visible for the management. In Odoo, it's more the case. Odoo is coming from the background that the manager can actually see all the information in Odoo and doesn't need to have such kind of tool. But of course, there's a way we have to take, and we are currently trying to do that with either with Odoo extended. We have done a nice extension in the finance area, or with we go into another tool which we use for that.
Okay, thank you very much for all those answers that you have given. As you can see, there are much more questions coming from the people watching your presentation. So we will have an extended Q&A session. So you can sit with your computer, go into a link that will figure out in the chat here. So also the people that are watching the video will also receive this link in a few seconds, and then you can continue to answer the question to those people and interact with them. So as you can see now, Alexandre has just put the link of the extended Q&A. So please go on this session. Just give a little minutes, yeah, so we can go into the session as well, and you can meet there for the extended Q&A session. So thank you again very much for your time today, and thank you all for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.